Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975 has been provided by the annual notice published in the Home News and Tribune on December 28, 2019, and has been posted in the main lobby of the municipal complex on January 5, 2020. Township of Edison Special Zoning Board of Adjustment special meeting is now in session. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now do roll call. Mr. Ayotte?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Present.
Mr. Carley?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Mr. Siddhartha?
Here.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Present.
Mr. Shmuel?
Here.
Mr. Kamba?
Here.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Here.
And Chairwoman Federick.
Here.
Now I'll call for a motion for the chairperson.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Rose Federick as chairman of the Edison Township Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Make a motion to close nominations.
Mr. Siddhartha? Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Federick.
Yes, I have to vote for myself, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. I
You're welcome.
appreciate your confidence in me, and I'm sure we'll have another eventful year. Having said that, I will now call for nomination for vice chair to the Edison Township Zoning Board.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I make a motion for Peter Skibar to serve as vice chairman to the board.
do I have a second?
Second.
I'll close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Siddhartha?
No, please.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
No.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Chairwoman Federick?
Yes, on the motion.
And Vice Chair Skibar.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Mr. Skibar, would you like to say anything? Excuse me, let the record reflect that our stand-in for Mr. Bignell this evening, Mr. Brian Vidlac, has just walked in. Good evening, sir, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Skibar?
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for the nomination, and I will continue to serve this board as best I can.
Okay, we now have a nomination naming Cassandra Augustine as secretary to the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Close nominations.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Federick.
Yes, on the motion. Okay, I will make a nomination to name Bhavini Shaw as attorney to the Township Zoning Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll make a motion to close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Cassandra, please.
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Federick.
Yes on the motion.
Thank you, everyone.
I will now also make a nomination to name Mr. Bignell and his company, Bignell Planning Consultants, as our professional planners to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Cassandra, please.
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Federick.
Yes on the motion. Okay. I will then make a motion naming Mr. Carley, together with his firm, Delaware Mountain Engineering, as our professional engineers to the Edison Township Zoning Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Cassandra, please.
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Federick?
Yes. Okay, thank you, Cassandra, for your help, and thank you, everyone, for your cooperation.
Thank you.
We're going to go a little out of order this evening, just because we are just doing something to be nice to a certain someone that has a birthday. So having said that, we're just going to adopt our resolutions first. Cassandra, go ahead, please.
Yes, there's two resolutions to be adopted. The first one is case number Z13, 2019 for Costco, and that has been granted. The second one is case number Z31, 2019 for McDonald's, and that motion is also granted.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cassandra, you want to read the first case, please?
Yes, case number Z52, 2019, on Tran, 49 Harrison Avenue, Edison, New Jersey, 08837, Section 376314 and 37675. Bulk variance being sought for work already done without approval or permits. Applicant constructed a front porch which encroaches on the permitted setback for this zone. Front yard setback required is 25 feet, proposed and existing is 19 feet. Affected property is located in the RB zone, designated as block number 796, lot number 13A on the Edison Township Tax Map. All paperwork is in order.
Mr. Tran, you want to come up, please, sir?
Mr. Tran, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. State your full name for the record.
I'm sorry.
Use the microphone, please, and state your full name for the record.
My name is On Tran.
Okay, sir. I'm going to ask you to just speak loudly into the microphone, please. Please tell the board what you've done and how you found out that you weren't supposed to do it, I guess.
I have, last year I've done the porch. I've added the porch. It's already kind of there as the front entrance, but I just extended 1 foot to make it look more nicer and easier to walk in and out. So I did that without the permit.
Okay. Now, how did you find out now that you needed a permit? What happened?
There's a gentleman here came by, so
Okay.
I had to report to the township, and I proceeded then.
Okay. All right. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Give you a couple minutes to
Madam
look
Chair.
at the plans. Yes, I'm sorry, who was that?
That was me.
Mr. Kamba?
Sir, have you received the Township Zoning Report Board Review Letter?
I'm sorry. Could
The
you,
Township Zoning Report Board Review Letter, it's dated November 25th, 2019.
2018, I have not received anything.
Okay, no, I'm asking, there's a letter.
It's the letter right in front of you.
Right here?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Have you had a chance to review it?
I didn't quite get what you're trying to say.
I'm asking if you had a chance to take a look at this letter and the provisions of this letter, the conditions
Just a
contained.
little bit, yes.
Okay. Are you willing to agree with this letter?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant from the board? Yes, Mr. Taglianetti?
Just for clarification, I'm looking at your architect's drawing 2 of 2. There's a photograph of the existing front elevation without a porch. It looks like the steps there, the concrete steps, are in disrepair, and the porch looks like it's being supported by some type of wood column. Is that correct?
Yes, this front porch is all supported with wood.
And when you replaced the porch, did you take all of that existing out?
It wasn't a porch. It's just a front 4 foot, 4.5 foot from the house out, and then there's 5 steps up. It's poor concrete. So it's the concrete is remain there. I just attached old wood material.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have one more.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cummings?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one additional question. Sir, the work that had been completed, did you complete it, or was it completed by a professional?
I completed myself, and I believe, and I have done research, and I have worked in construction with other people before. So I believe what I did was up to code and everything.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Ayotte, just for clarification, final approval would require a CO from the township, correct?
A CA, Certificate of Approval, yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the board? None? Okay, there being none, I'll go out to the public. Anyone within 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Yes, ma'am, come up, please, and be sworn in.
Ma'am, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, would you state your full name for the record, providing your address?
Sheila Retqua, 59 Howard Avenue.
Okay, what would you like to tell us, please?
We live next door, like it's on the corner. He lives on the corner. I just want to say that house sat vacant for 3 years. It was deteriorating, and everything that he has done has improved our neighborhood. Come by, see it. It really looks a lot better. We hated that it sat there, bank-owned. Lawn was never cut, and we're thankful. I just met him here tonight.
Oh, okay.
I don't know him, but thank you and welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else within 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Anyone else? Yes. Oh, come on up, sir. Sorry.
That's all right.
Hey, hold on. Raise your right hand.
Oh,
Do
sorry.
you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
State your full name for the record, providing your address.
Andrew Retqua, 59 Howard Avenue. And like my wife said, basically, the house had sat for several years. The original owner had passed away. And when Mr. Tran moved in, he's done nothing but work to improve the lot in general, and he's made quite a bit of improvements to it. So we hope that he's allowed to continue doing that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else within 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Anyone outside of 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? There's none. I'll close the case and go to the board, please, for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve. Although we don't like to see work done without the permits, I do think that this is the minimus request, and it is an improvement to the home and to the neighborhood.
Do I have a second?
I'm going to second, and I'm going to reiterate with what my colleague just said. Next time in the future, if you have another project like that, call the township and ask. You know, it's always best just to say on it. No, you don't have to worry about a permit for that. And then the construction office is very, very helpful. Code enforcement office is very helpful, and they'll kind of lead you along the right way. Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Cassandra?
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes on the motion.
And Chairwoman Federer.
Yes on the motion. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tran.
Thank you so much.
Case number Z1 2020, Joseph Santoli, 156 Loring Avenue, Edison, New Jersey, 08817, Section 376314, bulk variance seeking to build a 6-foot by 18-foot front porch on the existing single-family dwelling. Required front yard setback is 25 feet, proposed is 16 feet. Affected property is located in the RB zone, designated as block number 156, lot number 12, on the Edison Township tax map. All paperwork is in order.
You can sit down, Mr. Santoli.
Mr. Santoli, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, sir. Please tell the board what you would like to do and why.
So we have an existing small concrete front porch, and we wanted to build a Trex deck with aluminum railing, just to have more seating area in front of the house when the kids are playing in the street.
Okay. Does the board have any questions from Mr. Santoli?
Sir, did you
Mr. Skiba?
receive the township engineer's report?
Yes, sir.
And will you comply?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Board have any other questions for Mr. Santoli? None? Okay, go out to the public. Anyone within 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Anyone outside of 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Hearing none, I'll close the case and go to the board for a motion, please.
Madam Chair? I will-
Yes, sir?
I will make a
Mr. Conlon?
motion to approve. I believe this is a de minimis request. There has been no public present in opposition, and I think that it will be a benefit to his home and to the neighborhood.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Cassandra, please.
Mr. Sadadha?
Yes to the move.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes on the motion.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes on the motion.
And Chairwoman Federick?
Yes on the motion. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Santoli. You can do what you have to now and make your report. Thank you. You're welcome. Good evening, Mr. Santoli.
We move it close to here?
Just right here is
Yeah, move everything closer to here.
The board has to see it. Bring it here, the board may not be able to see it.
We'll see it. Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah, I think we have to turn it. He has to be able to see it on TV. That's why they.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay,
Does that work? Yeah.
I think that works. Good evening, Mr. Tripp. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You as well.
Nice to see you again. Long time no see.
Well, hasn't been that long. Good evening, for the record.
Oh, wait, you know what we didn't do? Cassandra didn't read the case into the record yet.
It's nice and short. I'll read it quickly.
Certainly.
Case number Z47, 2019, Federal Business Center, 255 Clover Place, Edison, New Jersey, 08837. Section 3738-1, applicant is seeking a use variance to permit parking as a principal use on a lot, accompanied by a minor subdivision application and preliminary and final site plan approval.
Good evening, Mr. Tripp, again.
Thank you. So, once again, for the record, Stephen Tripp from the firm of Wilentz, Goldman & Spitzer on behalf of the applicant, Federal Business Centers. We're here tonight, involves there's really 3 lots are involved in the application, but primarily 2 adjacent lots within Raritan Center. One currently is about 3.3 acres. It's got a truck parking facility for UPS, which is there as a result of an approval granted by this board a number of years ago. And there's some excess property on that lot. And the adjacent lot is vacant. It's got about 2.78 acres and with some environmental constraints and wetlands. What we're proposing to do is a subdivision that reconfigures the lot. We're going to reduce the size of the lot with the truck parking to 1.753 acres. And we're going to increase the second lot to 4.34 acres so that we can develop it as proposed this evening. No variances are required for the subdivision. We're just readjusting lot lines. The purpose of the enlarged lot is going to be a 214-space parking lot, which is designed to accommodate the needs of a tenant in the Campus Plaza complex that's part of Raritan Center that's directly across the street. Wakefern has been a tenant. Wakefern has multiple facilities in Raritan Center. One of them is an office complex immediately across the street from this vacant lot. And they are in the process of expanding their workforce. They're reconfiguring their internal workspace. They're not expanding the footprint of the building or doing anything exterior, but they're readjusting, reconfiguring their workspace, and they anticipate adding a number of jobs and increasing activity there, and they need additional parking. So given the constraints of the site, the relatively small size of the site, we're coming before the board for a variance to put a parking lot in. Now, it's technical in nature in one respect. Parking is permitted in the zone. It's just only permitted as an accessory use. And it actually is an accessory use, but because there's a right-of-way in between and it's on its own lot, it technically is a principal use, and therefore we need a variance because we're not putting a building on the lot, we're only putting parking. So that's essentially why we're before the board. I will have testimony from our engineer, our traffic, we have a traffic engineer to address the issue as well. What we were going to do is put in a crosswalk with certain safety precautions, lights and signs, so that the people who use the lot will be able to get across safely. We had the traffic engineer do a gap analysis to make sure that it would function safely, and we'll be putting that testimony on the record. There's also a second variance that was noted in Mr. Bignell's report that is subsumed within the use variance, but we will address it for the record, which is there's a minimum gross floor area requirement of 5,000 square feet, and obviously there's no building, so we don't meet that requirement either. And our planner will be addressing all of that as well. So what I'd like to do is start with the engineer, explain the subdivision, go through the site plan. We're going to have the traffic engineer just briefly address the issue of safe passage across Clover and the functioning of the crosswalk, and then we'll have the planner address the statutory criteria for a D variance.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Go ahead.
Sure.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and please state your full name for the record.
Robert Espasa. E-S-P-A-S-A.
Can we have some qualifications, please, sir?
Sure.
For the record?
I'm a licensed professional engineer in the states of New Jersey and New York. I've been licensed since 2001. I've been preparing site plans in the state of New Jersey for over 20 years. I have a bachelor's of science in civil engineering from Rutgers University. The site plans prepared in front of you were prepared under my direction. I've testified before numerous boards in the state of New Jersey, including the Planning Board of Edison numerous times.
Including within the last month or two.
Correct.
Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll accept your qualifications, sir.
Thank you. So I'd like you, you have an aerial exhibit.
Yes.
That's, can you mark that A1? And with reference to Exhibit A1, can you just mention what it is?
Sure. It's a color aerial plan showing the existing conditions. The 3 lots are highlighted in red, 1, 2, and 3.
And can you explain the lots that are involved in the application?
Sure. So the first lot is Lot 1, Block 390CC. It's located at the corner of Clover Place and Parkway Place. It's a paved parking lot for trailer storage used by UPS, as Mr. Tripp said previously. It's currently a 3.31 acre lot. To the west of that lot is Lot 2, Block 390CC, known as 225 Clover Place. It's a vacant lot. It's 2.78 acres, and this is the lot where the proposed parking lot is proposed. So across south of Clover Place, south of these 2 lots, is what's known as Campus Plaza. It's known as Block 395, Lot 22. It contains numerous buildings of office and flex space and associated parking. So Wakefern is a major tenant in Campus Plaza. They occupy about 84,000 square feet of this northeasternmost building, closest to the proposed parking lot. They are currently using 364 parking spaces in Campus Plaza. Their current employee population is 440 and increasing, and they have not including visitors, so the need for the parking is necessary.
And the zoning is,
Zoning is all Raritan River Revitalization Zone, RRRD.
and in terms of environmental constraints on Lot 2, the lot that we're developing.
Yes, so there are,
We review the constraints.
yes, there are wetlands and wetlands buffers to the west of the lot. This wooded area is all wetlands and wetland buffer and undevelopable. The project will encroach into some of the wetland buffers, but we do have NJDEP permits to allow those activities.
And those permits have been provided to the board and its professionals.
They have, yes. There is also some soil contamination on site, which will be remediated in accordance with NJDEP requirements prior to the construction of the parking lot.
In terms of the surrounding area, this is located within Raritan Center, correct?
Yes, and all the uses around here are light industrial uses, similar to what's being used in Campus Plaza.
Light industrial and office use?
Yes,
Did you prepare the site plan as well?
I did.
And you have a rendering?
I do.
With you this evening? Let's
Yeah.
mark that as A2.
Yeah.
And can you explain what we're proposing to do?
Yes, so what you're seeing here is the proposed parking lot across the street from the Campus Plaza site. It's a 214-space parking lot. The spaces will be striped at 9 feet by 18 feet in accordance with the ordinance. Access will be off of Clover Place with a driveway that's 24 feet in width. It will be a private lot, not for public access. There'll be a 6-foot-high vinyl chain link fence painted black around the perimeter of the parking lot. There'll be no parking of vehicles that are not related to Wakefront's uses, and there'll be no storage of no outside storage on the parking lot. So to provide access from the Wakefront building to the parking lot and vice versa, we are proposing some sidewalks on both sides of Clover Place and a crosswalk across Clover Place. The crosswalk will be fixed with pedestrian warning signs on both approaches, and there will also be a push-button activated crosswalk with flashing signals at both ends of the crosswalk so that vehicles can be aware that there's an active crosswalk here. The sidewalk that will connect to the Wakefront building will require some minor reconfiguration of the parking lot, so we'll lose 4 parking spaces in the Wakefront and the Campus Plaza lot. So 214 proposed minus 4 to 210 net gain of parking spaces.
And the sidewalk, there was a comment in one of the reports, I think Mr. Carley's report, that the width should be increased from 4 to 5 feet, and we're going to do that.
We can do that, yes. I did want to talk about the ADA, the handicap parking spaces. So we're not proposing any ADA spaces in the parking lot just because of the distance to get to the main building. Handicap parking spaces should be around as close to the barrier-free entrances as possible. So there are a bank of ADA handicap spaces around the perimeter of the building that will satisfy the requirement.
As long as you're on that topic, I'm looking at a letter that we received from Officer Winters, which says that he reviewed the application, and he says that the proposed plan does not directly affect traffic flow. However, it does not list the ADA required handicap spots. And I would recommend, as per the ADA, 214 parking spots would require a minimum of 7 handicap parking spots. Did you get that, Mr. Tripp?
Yes, we
With
did.
one being van accessible. And then he goes on to say, and I'm not sure what he's saying here, this proposed plan will affect pedestrian traffic flow, and no further signage is required for the proposed pedestrian walkway. And it says no further devices needed as per MUTCD. Have you checked with him at all about where he would want those spaces?
We just got this today. Yeah, well, I think all he's saying is it will affect flow because we're going to be having cars that are crossing, pedestrians crossing the street. He didn't say there's any problem with it.
Right.
He just was commenting on it. In terms of the ADA, and I'm going to defer to our engineer, I think that the adding the parking spaces doesn't generate need for additional, and we'll have to work this out with him, because to put 14 handicap spaces across the street doesn't seem to make any sense. Handicap spaces have to be by the
Right.
building in close proximity, and I think, Mr. Espaza, we have, how many spaces immediately adjacent to the building?
So the parking lot does require 7 spaces, but we do have plenty of spaces within Campus Plaza. Currently, Campus Plaza requires 23 handicap spaces. There are 43 distributed within the campus.
So to the extent that adding the parking generates a need, it's met on the existing lot that this lot is going to serve, correct?
That's correct.
So we'll review that with the,
I was going to say, if we so approve, we'll make that a condition
yeah,
to
we'll
approval.
review that with him. But I
Okay.
think once he understands that there's more handicap spaces than necessary on the lot that actually serve the building, I don't think there'll be a problem.
Okay, fine, thank you. I'm sorry, but as long as you were talking about the spaces, I figure I might as well get that in there.
No, that's fine, that's fine. One less thing to address later.
Yep.
I can talk about the site lighting. We will be providing 6 new pole-mounted lights to light the parking lot. The fixtures will be mounted at 25 feet in height. All fixtures will be LED fixtures, and the light levels are designed to meet the ordinance requirements. In terms of landscaping, you can see here that we are providing some trees as best we can within the constricted lot here. With the management calculations, 154 replacement trees are required. We are providing 127 on site. We kind of ran out of room, so we are proposing that the 27 remaining trees be contributed to the Edison Tree Fund.
So a contribution in lieu of planting
Yes,
for those 27 trees.
that's right.
And in terms of stormwater management?
Yeah, stormwater management, the project will increase impervious surfaces by 1.19 acres. So it's considered a major development and subject to the state stormwater regulations. Runoff will be collected and conveyed from the parking lot to 2 detention basins, one at the northeast corner, one at the southeast corner. The bottom of the basins will have sand filters to treat the runoff for water quality in accordance with the stormwater regulations. And the detention basins will reduce the peak flow rates for up to the 100-year storm to below pre-development conditions in accordance with the stormwater regulations.
And you looked at Mr. Carley's stormwater management comments,
Yes, I did.
and you'll comply with those?
Yes.
In terms of signage, you just want to explain what we're proposing?
Yeah, we're proposing 1 monument sign at the driveway. The sign will indicate that it's private parking and no public access. The sign will be approximately 5.5 feet high and 6.5 feet wide. And I did mention earlier the pedestrian crossing signs and the crosswalk signage that we're proposing.
Now, one thing that you didn't explain was, can you show where the subdivision, how the lots are being reconfigured?
Yeah, sure.
Just so the board understands that aspect.
It's a little hard to see, but currently the lot line cuts through the parking lot today. So we're doing a lot line adjustment really just so that the entire parking lot can fit in one lot and the UPS lot will be on its own separate lot. So this is the new proposed lot line that follows the existing rail spur that it cuts through the site.
And you did a zoning table that showed that both lots fully conform to the requirements for the zone?
Yes, we did.
All dimensional and bulk requirements?
Yeah,
correct?
no variances, correct.
Okay.
Do you want to go through Mr. Bignell's comments?
Sure.
For anything that we haven't touched upon?
Documentation of approval or exemption that may be required. Mr. Espaza, we have freehold soil approval, correct, sir?
We do, yes.
And we have 2 letters of no interest from the county,
Yes, we do.
one on the subdivision and one on the site plan?
That's
And
correct.
those have been submitted with our latest submission to the board?
Yes.
Testimony relative to how the site will operate, who will use and maintain the lot. I think we stated for the record that it will be utilized by Wakefern, which is across the Clover Place, and it will be maintained, the use and the operation will be Wakefern. correct?
That's right.
And the maintenance will be Federal Business Centers.
Yes.
And Site remediation status, I think you indicated that it's going to be removal of all the contaminated soil
Prior to construction, yes.
prior to construction. And that's pursuant to DEP?
Yes.
Correct? Wetlands in the buffer area, you indicated that we're doing work in that area, and we do have our permits, and those permits were submitted as well, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Bignell wants the applicant to indicate that parking will be exclusively for the building across the street, no storage of vehicles not associated with operations, and it should be made a condition of approval. We stipulate to that. The sole purpose of this is to provide parking to the building across the street.
Right, and as you know, Mr. Bignell's main concern was dealers parking cars all over the township, so.
Yeah, and this is being specifically operated by Federal Business Centers within their park
Right.
for the purpose of their tenants,
Okay.
of that particular tenant. Street trees, he just noted that we need 27 additional trees to be provided. We're asking for a contribution in lieu of providing those 27. Pipeline status, you have indicated, you wrote to the pipeline companies, you heard back from one,
We heard back from Sunoco, letter of no interest, and we're still waiting for Elizabethtown gas.
but you don't anticipate anything from Elizabethtown based on your knowledge of what's in the area.
Correct. Based on prior projects in around the area, we do not.
No outside storage of materials shall be permitted. We'll add a note to the plans indicating that,
We will, yes.
and that can be a condition of approval. And the
that's
last
that?
comment is fees, and the fees were paid.
We know that, okay. Mr. Carley, you have any input?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We issued a report dated today. Mr. Esposito, you have a copy of it.
I do.
You know, and in that report, that follows up a car engineering associated report of, I believe, November of last year. We looked to elicit some testimony, some additional materials as the project, if the board decides to grant approval, as the project goes through the construction sequence, those things that you have to work with the township engineer as you go through construction. Is there anything in there that gives you pause?
No.
The one thing that I would like you to consider is, it is a rather large parking lot that's across the street. If, you know, it's not a you shall do this comment, it's, you should think about it in terms of active surveillance, in terms of security cameras in the parking lot, in terms of the way you light the parking lot, things of that nature. The proposal as it's laid out fully conforms with the ordinance, but there's some things that you can do that we ask you to think about as you go forward.
Actually, we did discuss your comment, and Mr. Esposito, can you just explain what type of surveillance and security Federal Business Centers currently has and what they're proposing for this lot?
So they do have daily surveillance throughout the campus to all their properties and to all their lots. So it's kind of like you see at the mall, these cars with the yellow light on top. So they do provide that through all their properties within
Is it
the
your
corporate park.
understanding that that will continue from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then weekends and holidays, it's 24/7?
Yes.
So they'll have a patrol, a safety patrol going through?
That's good information to have.
Okay, great. That's it, Mr. Carley?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Bidlack, I'm assuming everything is okay with you and Mr. Bignell's report? Okay, fantastic. Mr. Esposito, anything else? Or Mr. Tripp, anything else?
No, there was nothing else in Mr. Crowley's report that we had any issues with at all.
Okay, I'll go to the board. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Esposito? Mr. Skibar?
Actually, just, has there been consideration of moving the crosswalk to the other side of the right-of-way? My thought is, like, you got a majority of traffic coming in off of Raritan Parkway, making a left into the parking lot. I'm just curious as to, you know, why that side versus the far
I
side.
do have a traffic engineer who's going to address the crosswalk, so I'd like to reserve that question for him.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Esposito?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Conlon?
Is there any gate or anything so as to ensure that, you know, that the proper folks are parking there and somebody's not there, you don't have any transient parking?
So we're not contemplating a gate currently.
Okay. But the site is, I mean, the site is monitored so that, I mean, are there parking permits or something like that if you're an employee or a guest there? Is there assigned spots?
I think that Wakefern is going to monitor the lot themselves. They're going to be operating the lot, and they're going to monitor the lot themselves. But they did not want gated access.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? None? Okay, Mr. Tripp, next.
Yes, Scott Parker, traffic engineer.
Mr. Parker, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And yes, please state your full name for the record.
Yes. Scott Parker.
May we have some qualifications, please, Mr. Parker?
Certainly. I received my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Delaware in 1986. I have been a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 1994. My entire career has been spent in the state of New Jersey. I've been with the firm of Jacobs Engineering since we were acquired in 2007. Prior to that, I'd spent the entirety of this part of my career with Edwards & Kelsey, the firm that was absorbed. You may have heard of Edwards & Kelsey somewhere in the past if you've been in this game long enough. I have represented numerous municipalities around the state and some in New York as the board traffic engineer, Reddington Township, Union Township, City of Yonkers, Borough of Glen Ridge. I currently represent the Borough of Fort Lee as the borough traffic engineer. I've testified before numerous boards on behalf of development applications, master planning applications all over the state for many years.
All in connection with traffic engineering.
All in connection with traffic and transportation, yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll accept your qualifications, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker, can you just tell us what you were asked to do here and what you did?
Okay, I was shown the preliminary site plans, which evolved a little bit as they were refined, and asked to prepare an evaluation of the implications of construction and utilization of this parking lot and construction of the crosswalk on two things: on the operation and mobility of traffic flow in the area, and on the ability to safely accommodate pedestrian crossings of Clover Place. Those are the two primary objectives of my investigation.
And you prepared a report that was submitted with this application?
Yes, I did. It was the report dated August 13th, 2019.
Dated traffic and pedestrian crossing assessment?
Yes, that is correct.
And can you briefly review what you studied and what you concluded? Okay,
certainly. Why don't we get to the traffic flow issue that you posed as part of this up front? Believe it or not, traffic directionally is reasonably balanced along Clover Place, crossing the intersection with Pear Blossom Drive. There is a slightly higher volume of traffic that goes through on Clover Place to and from the east, or westbound traffic, as opposed to eastbound traffic coming in off of Raritan Center Parkway, but they are reasonably equivalent. As part of the study, we looked at traffic counts that had been conducted as part of a previous investigation by another firm and undertook some supplemental studies, counts at the intersection of Clover Place and Pear Blossom Drive. That was to determine directional distribution of the vehicles entering and exiting Campus Plaza. There is through vehicle movement that goes down to the FedEx and the UPS facilities, employees and drivers and delivery vehicles and such. But we were looking at what the new traffic would do, trying to pin down a pattern of existing employee traffic that we could apply to the increase in volume that will be attributed to the increase in staffing by Wakefern Foods. As you heard previously, they do anticipate increasing their employee count from approximately 440 to 584, roughly 144 staff increase, full-time equivalents. Bear in mind that is employment spread over 7 days, 24 hours a day. As with most businesses, the majority of them do work the typical traditional daytime shift, the 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. But they will be looking to increase by 144, not all of which will necessarily be arriving and departing during the AM and PM peak hours, which are the busiest periods that were the focus of this study. when you look at the volumes in the crossings that would be going over the location of the proposed pedestrian crossing, currently, during the AM peak period, there are, 204, and during the PM period, 252 vehicles that currently cross that crosswalk location. That is a relatively low volume of traffic, considering a lane of traffic can typically handle 1,600 vehicles an hour in free-flow conditions. We're also looking at a relatively low speed of traffic flow. There are trucks that tend to keep traffic moving a little more slowly. It's a rather short section of roadway. Traffic heading west or eastbound is coming off of Raritan Center Parkway, having just executed a turn and soon to make another. They're not really building up a full head of steam. Conversely, traffic heading westbound out to Raritan Center Parkway, majority of which came out of Pear Blossom Drive, having just made a left turn, they're moving relatively slowly as well. So you got those two factors that really are in favor of a safe condition: relatively low volumes and relatively low speed compared to more major thoroughfare type roadways. We took a look at just starting off with the operational analysis, level of service analysis, and the intersection that would be most affected, obviously, Clover and Pear Blossom, currently operates all the movements, levels of service A and B, which are considered extremely good operational levels. They would continue to operate so even with the increased traffic flow from the increased employee count. On the subject of safety, we wanted to make sure, in addition to all of the measures that were built into the actual design, the visual delineation of the crossing location, the fencing around the parking lot that would channel the users to actually utilize the crosswalk as opposed to just crossing wherever they happen to see fit, as well as the installation of the push-button actuated flashing bar pedestrian warning lights. Pedestrian steps up to the crosswalk, hits the button. There's the permanent fixed mount signage, but the lights begin to flash, advising motorists, hey, active pedestrian crossing ahead. They have proven very, very effective in maintaining safety for pedestrian crossing locations in many places. You're really looking at a 44-foot crossing distance. And looking at an average walking speed to take advantage of some with lessened mobility, looking at about 2.5 feet per second, which means you would need to maintain a minimum of 17 seconds of time to cross from one curb to the other curb without any traffic coming through. That's what the gap analysis was all about. We do have some proprietary programs we've written where you visually monitor and record the exact time that vehicles in both directions cross the cordon line, or cross, in this case, the crosswalk location, and it timestamps all of those and develops a data set to determine how many gaps you have in one direction, the other direction, and gaps in both directions. We're looking for gaps in both directions here. What we found that under current conditions, you've got roughly 90 gaps that are a minimum of 17 seconds long during those peak hours that are suitable for a pedestrian to comfortably and safely cross that roadway. Of an interesting note, probably 25% or more of those gaps are well in excess of 17 seconds, some extending 30, 40, 60 seconds, which is a lifetime to get across that street. So with this combination of the low speeds, the low volumes, the pedestrian safety accommodations built into the design, as well as the prevailing traffic flows providing a range of suitable gaps where people aren't darting across, and so they may wait 20 seconds for a car or a couple of cars to pass. That's not an uncommon situation, and with the push button, it gives them an extra level of comfort. I would have to say that from my assessment, this parking lot, its utilization, and particularly the pedestrian crossing, will operate in an efficient and safe manner, both for mobility and pedestrian safety.
And there'll be no adverse impact on the traffic flow?
There would not. There would not. We ran the operational analysis with the additional traffic assigned to that roadway network coming in and out of that lot. We took a conservative approach there and assumed that every one of the brand new employees will arrive during the same hour in the morning and depart during the same hour in the evening, and they would all utilize this new parking facility, which is basically a worst case for pedestrian flow. With that said, we're really looking at about 1 vehicle per minute increase in vehicles that are going to be crossing that crosswalk, which is a relatively de minimis effect on what the existing conditions are today.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. Parker? Mr. Skibar?
Yeah, just the operation of the flashing light, it activated at time of push the button, or is there a timer?
It is activated when you push the button. It is not a pedestrian phase like you would see at a traffic signal where you hit the button and everything goes red except for the pedestrian movements. It's an actuated visual warning system for situations just like this. I believe there was a detail of the sign or one of their cut sheets in the plan set. It's basically pole mounted. There are yellow triangular pedestrian signs like you see at pedestrian crossings all over the place. Solar panel to provide continuous powering of a battery system, and a bar that is located below that diamond sign that when you hit the button, that light starts strobing, indicating to approaching drivers from both directions that this is now an active crosswalk. There's a pedestrian about to cross here. It is also the intent to install like a sandwich board, movable sandwich board during the peak periods, during the daytime, at the center line of the roadway within the crosswalk for added visual delineation.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Newell?
Sir, your study is based on all the cars showing up at parking at the same time?
All the increase in vehicles. We recorded the volumes of traffic that's coming through that area today with the existing 440 employees and their visitors. With the anticipation of the increase of 144 additional employees, we loaded all of those in, assuming during the peak period, which is obviously not going to happen. I haven't run across a business yet where, unless it's shift work on an assembly line where everybody must be there at the same time, that is not the case here. It's an office environment. Work shifts tend to extend. Somebody may come in at 9 and work till 9. Some people may come in at noon and work till well into the evening. So to my mind, that was a very conservative assumption to make. It's not realistic, but it is worst case.
So what would be your assessment on the 200-plus parking spots as far as people parking there at what hours and crossing? What I'm really asking is there going to be 200 people crossing the street at 9 a.m. in the morning?
I would not say so, no. Even though we assume that in the analysis, if you look at the 214 spaces, not all of them are going to be needed. That's just, you always build a little bit extra just in case. We're really looking at increase of employment and increase in consultants and visitors on a daily basis or on a 24-hour basis of a total of 170. So at worst, if every single spot within Campus Plaza was filled and they all had to park over there, you would have 170 pedestrians crossing during the peak hour. And as I mentioned, that's really a conservative, non-realistic scenario. They would be spread a lot more. You're going to have a lot of the people that utilize that lot during the daytime. The employees that work the later shifts or work overnight, where some people on the day shifts have already left, they're going to park near the building because spaces will become available. There'll be a turnover of those more proximate spaces. And especially at nighttime, people tend to want to park nearer the door. So even with these conservative worst-case situations, I would still consider that to be a safe crossing location. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Parker? None? Mr. Tripp?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
I'd like to call Richard Price, planner.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your full name for the record.
Yes, it's Richard M. Price, spelled P-R-E-I-S-S.
You can sit down, Mr. Price. Just
Thank you.
speak loudly into the microphone, please. May we have some qualifications, please?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm a principal and vice president of Phillips Price Greigill. We're a planning and real estate firm with offices in Hoboken. I've been with that firm since 1981. I've testified before.
No, he's okay. We can hear him. He's okay.
I've testified before this board on numerous occasions. I'm also a municipal planner to a number of communities in New Jersey, including Cranberry Township in Middlesex.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
So you listened to the testimony in terms of what's proposed?
Mr. Tripp?
Okay.
You have to do it better.
Okay. I moved it away because I thought they were causing some
No.
interference. What were you asked to do? What did we ask you to take a look at in connection with this
Yes,
application?
so the purpose of my review was to determine the appropriateness of the two variances, the use variance and the C variance associated with not meeting the minimum gross floor area.
And in terms of doing that, what did you take a look at?
Well, I looked at the master plan and zoning ordinance as it pertains to the application. I looked at the site plan. I visited the site, and I conferred with the other consultants involved in this application.
And you've been here this evening, and you've heard the testimony of the other witnesses?
Yes.
As to what's being proposed?
Yes.
And can you just briefly review the nature of what the relief we're seeking?
Yes, so as indicated in the introduction, the main purpose when why we're before the planning board is a use variance. It's required because parking is not permitted. It's a principal use in the RRD district. However, it is permitted as an accessory use. And the fact that it's located on a separate lot means that it is a principal use separated from the use which is serving, even though it's serving as an accessory use to Wakefern office building, which is across the street. And then the other one is the minimum gross floor area, which is 5,000 square foot per lot in the RRD district. Here, no building is proposed, so we need a C variance for that, not meeting that minimum requirement.
And in terms of the D variance, what is the criteria that you took a look at?
Yes, so typically the applicant has to prove special reasons, positive criteria, including addressing the particular suitability of the proposed use, also to address the negative criteria, that there'd be no substantial detriment to the public good or zone plan. And in the case of a use variance, the enhanced burden of proof with regard to Medici, which means it has to indicate how the board can grant a use which is not permitted in the zone by the governing body.
So in terms of particular site suitability, to demonstrate special reasons, you took a look at that?
Yes, it did.
And can you tell us your findings?
Yes, so I think that this is clearly a case where particular suitability can be found. There is still a need for office space in today's environment, but the way in which office space is being used in the industry has changed substantially. Even though the overall need for office space has declined, the use of existing space has changed substantially. We all know that many more people work from home or telecommute. However, those who still work in corporate offices, in this case, the amount of floor area devoted to office use per employee has declined significantly. When I started in this business in the 80s, you had corporate offices where you had large single occupant offices, and now because of efficiencies and cost savings, corporations use open floor plans, and they try to squeeze many more employees into a given floor area. And that's the case here, where Wakefern is actually making changes to accommodate more employees within a particular office area. So the subject site is particularly suited because there is a need for this additional parking. It's located directly across the road. The employees and the visitors who will use that particular lot will be utilizing the existing space in the Wakefern office building, which is across the road, and so it's located very conveniently to that particular use. Also, in terms of compatibility, this is an area which has large office buildings and flex space, which have large parking lots, so it's not out of context. And in fact, the adjacent use, part of the property which is being subdivided off, has a parking lot as a principal use for the UPS located immediately adjacent to it. So that's another example of parking as a principal use in the zone.
And also, are there characteristics of the property itself that makes it particularly suited as well?
Yes, this is kind of a remainder parcel. It's left over. It has environmental constraints that was described. The potential development of the lot is, because it's small and has this environmental constraint, would be for a very small office building, which is not really what is intended or really suited in Raritan Center, which has large industrial flex buildings and office buildings. So I think if you look at the combination of the development constraints, the location across from Wakefront's office, its location next to the UPS parking facility, the site is particularly suited for the proposed use, and in my mind, would be a special reason in support of granting the variance.
And in terms of furthering the goals of the master plan and purposes of the municipal land use law?
Yes, in terms of furthering the goals in the master plan, one of the goals in your master plan is to provide for the future growth of Raritan Center, and the Campus Plaza and Wakefront offices are located within the Raritan Center. So the relief that would be granted would permit continued growth of existing businesses such as Wakefern. So it certainly advances that purpose. In terms of the municipal land use law, there are three purposes. Purpose G, which is to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for office use, and that's certainly needed in this location. Purpose M is encouraging a lessening of cost of such development and a more efficient use of land. The use of this particular property to accommodate the parking and allow Wakefern to flourish is an efficient use of land and less costly than alternatives, and then granting the relief will allow the existing business to expand its workforce and accommodate the parking within the township, which advances the general welfare. So purpose A would be advanced.
And in terms of the C variance, did you look at the variance regarding minimum gross floor area?
I did. In that particular situation, I think it qualifies under the C2 standards where the benefits outweigh the detriments. It's also a better zoning alternative, and I don't believe that there's any negative associated with it. I reached that conclusion because I believe that utilizing the parking lot is a better planning alternative than putting in a small office building just to meet the minimum gross floor area requirements. It really doesn't serve any purpose. The utilization of the property to support the existing development across the right-of-way is an efficient use of land, and I think that that benefit outweighs any negative impact.
Substantially outweighs any negative impact.
Correct. And then with regard to the negative criteria, I think we can take the D and C variance together, be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or zone plan. Parking is an accessory use that's permitted in the RRD district. Tractor-trailer parking is located immediately adjacent to it. There's no buildable area per the use as required in the ordinance, but parking is a permitted use in the RRD district, so the provision of no building will have no impact on the surrounding area, and the grant of the variance will allow this development to be compatible with the surrounding area as well. So there's no detriment to the public good. Also, the use of the space as parking is something that's contemplated in the master plan, albeit accessory with a building on the property. The fact that there's no building on the property doesn't make it less suitable. The only other possible detriment would be related to the safety concerns for the pedestrian crossing, and that has been addressed by the traffic engineer. And finally, with regard to the enhanced quality of proof, I believe the variance is one of a technicality. It's not a prohibited use in the zone. It's allowed as an accessory use. It's only because it's classified as a principal use and located on its own separate lot. However, it is consistent with the intended purpose of the zoning ordinance and master plan, and will still function as an accessory use to Wakefern's offices, even though it's located on a separate lot. This is a type of unique situation that could not be contemplated by the governing body when the ordinance was adopted. So in my opinion, the board can grant the variance despite parking not being listed as a permitted principal use in the zone without detriment to the master plan or zoning ordinance.
That's it, Mr. Tripp?
I have nothing further of this witness.
Does the board have any question of Mr. Price? None? Okay. Moving forward. Anybody else?
No, that would be our case.
Okay. Board has no other questions, correct? Okay, there being none, I'll go out to the public. Anyone within 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Anyone outside of 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? How did I know?
It's been a while.
Yes,
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your full name for the record, providing your address.
Mary Ann Hennessy. Mary Ann is 2 words, and Hennessy is spelled Hennessey. My address is 20 Carmelo Drive. I only have 2 minor questions. I was curious, since you're increasing staffing, will you be utilizing more space closer to the building for visitors? And if so, will it be clearly marked so that they don't park across the street?
Mr. Tripp? Oh,
We have marked them already. We do have additional.
okay, does he want to testify, Mr. Tripp? He can be, yeah,
We
he
have
can be
somebody-
strong.
We do have somebody from Wakefern
Yep.
who can answer the
Yeah,
question.
let him be sworn in, please.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your full name for the record.
Andrew Patel, Pittel.
Mr. Patel, can you answer Ms. Hennessy's question?
First of all, can you state your position with Wakefern?
Sure. I'm the manager of real estate for Wakefern Food Corp. I oversee all real estate
Okay.
And you're familiar and you've been involved in this project, correct?
from the beginning, yes.
Thank you. Can you answer the question?
So yes, we just redid the parking lot and we added additional visitor parking spaces with the new parking lot in mind.
Oh, good. Thank you, because sometimes visitors coming with bulky items to show, et cetera, to be over there and having to come to the building. That's why I wondered if you had adjusted for visitors.
And they're marked, clearly marked visitor.
All right, thank you. My next question is regarding the fact that that site has UPS trucks. Does UPS have its own entrance and exit? They won't be utilizing.
Yes. I think Rob Espasa can answer that. Our engineer.
Mr. Esposito, you're going to have to share a microphone,
Here.
sorry.
Yes, so UPS has its own entrance off of Clover Place, separate from the entrance for the parking lot.
Okay, all right.
And they also have another entrance on the other road as
Correct.
well.
One on Parkway Place.
That's what I was wondering, if they had a dual
They have
entrance.
dual entrances, yes.
Okay. Their exit and entrance on Clover, that's not anywhere near where your crosswalk will be?
No, it's probably 200, at least 200 feet away.
Okay, so there's clearance and everything that way. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, that's it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Except,
Turn it off?
Mine's off, yeah.
Yours is off? Maybe it's, okay, it was yours. I don't know, Mr. Tripp. Haven't seen you here in a long time. You're causing trouble already. I don't know.
That's it. Let me try this one.
and neither have I been here in a
Long time, yeah, you see?
I just wanted to wish everybody a belated Happy New Year, good health during the year, and congratulations on your appointments.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Anyone else outside of 200 feet of the property wanting to be heard? Okay, there being none, I'll close the case. Mr. Tripp, would you like to summation?
Yeah, just very briefly, this is a unique situation where in the middle of an industrial park, we have essentially a small remainder parcel with environmental constraints that really wouldn't support any substantial development of the kind that's found throughout Raritan Center. And fortunately, it's located directly across the street from a vibrant part of Raritan Center where additional parking is needed. So we actually think this is a classic textbook case of particular site suitability, because you have a property that's not really susceptible of any significant development, but can be utilized to enhance existing development within a Raritan Center. You also have the situation, which is unusual. It's a D variance, it's a use variance, but the use actually is permitted in the zone. It's only that it's permitted in conjunction with a building, and since we technically don't have a building on the site, the building's across the street, that's the D variance. The only issue is the issue of safe pedestrian access, and I think that's been fully addressed. We had a study done. We didn't submit an application until we had our traffic engineer analyze the situation, make recommendations as to how the crosswalk should be developed and how we could safely get pedestrians across, back and forth from the building to the lot and vice versa. So we think we fully addressed all of any possible concern, and we addressed the ADA, we addressed all the issues in the professionals' reports, and have agreed to conditions to address those reports as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tripp. I will now go to the board, please.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve. I do not see a detriment. I think this lot is suitable and will serve the applicant. They will remediate the contaminated soil, make the appropriate contributions to the tree fund. I do not see any glaring hazards to pedestrian crossing and feel that they did take adequate measures to assure that. And for those reasons, I'll make a motion to approve.
I will just add one amendment. You're also going to work out and speak with the Officer Winters on the handicap parking spots.
We'll explain that the excess space is on the
Correct.
other side.
Yeah, we'll just make this a condition of that, yep.
And we'll have to get a letter from him clarifying.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Taglianetti?
May I also
Sure.
add that there'll be no on-site storage on that lot?
Absolutely. There'll be a note will be added to the plans, and it can be a condition of the approval.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that it will be exclusive use for Wakefern employees.
It will be exclusive use for, yes, for
Wakefern.
employees of that, occupants of that building.
Okay, so we have a motion to,
And their consultants as well.
yeah, correct, anything to do with Wakefield.
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll make a second, but I'll also add that they'll also abide by our township engineer, our board engineer and board planner reports.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Cassandra?
Mr. Siddhartha?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Taglianetti?
Yes.
Mr. Shmuel?
Yes on the motion.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Kamba?
Yes on the motion.
Vice Chair Skibar?
Yes on the motion.
And Chairwoman Federer?
Yes on the motion. Okay.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Tripp. Always a pleasure. Okay, with that, since we've already done the resolutions,
Motion to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you next week. Michael?